done with their stadium. I was there 2 years ago, and it's an amazing facility. But Kevin Sumlin's a good friend of mine. We have the same birthday, and looking forward to playing the Aggies there on Saturday night. Offensively, extremely explosive. Noel Mazzoni does a fantastic job. The two backs they've got are big-time runners, guys that, they're going to create space, and getting one-on-one matchups, you're going to have to be able to tackle in space and get both these guys on the ground, and they can take the ball anywhere. They run the inside zone extremely well, and that thing can bounce all the way to the backside. They do a fantastic job, both Ford and Williams. Christian Kirk's as good a player as there is in college football as far as a returner and a receiver. They're very deep and athletic on the offensive line. They've got a deep receiving core. They're young, but they're talented. And then Kellen Mond last week ran for over 100 and threw for over 200. And had an outstanding game against Arkansas and scoring 50 points and winning in overtime. But really has continued to come on since he's played in the UCLA game and then the Nichols game and the Lafayette game, and going into the Arkansas game continues to improve. Jake Hubenek is a backup and certainly a dependable guy that they've got. So they've got some depth at the position after the injury. Defensively, John Chavis does a great job. He's been in this league for a long time. They're very active inside with Henderson and Kiki and Dalen Mack, guys that we got to be able to handle those guys inside. Jarrett Johnson is an outstanding rusher on the edge, creates a lot of issues for you. They're leading the league in sacks, and he's certainly a huge part of that. Armani Watts is as good a safety as there is in our leagues, played there for a long time. So really good specialist, and obviously I mentioned Christian Kirk earlier, and it'll be a great atmosphere there in College Station. We're looking forward to getting on the road and playing Texas A&M, and I'll open up for any questions.
Well, what's the update on Corey Helms and Sawyer and Montauk?
Should have hit that. Injury report, Zach Bailey's out this week. We'll probably not know on Corey till Thursday. I'm going to try and get something done tomorrow and see how he does on Thursday. Stephen Montauk will practice tomorrow, so we'll see how far along he's come. Anton Walter will practice tomorrow, and Dante Sawyer practiced today.
Is there one thing that has to get better in terms of red zone offense that is a key there, or is it a combination of factors?
I would say it's a combination of factors. We've had 9 red zone trips. We've scored 4 touchdowns. We've kicked 2 field goals. We've had 2 missed field goals. We've turned it over on downs 1 time. We're 1 of 5 in kicking field goals, whether it's in the red zone or high fringe area. We had an interception 2 weeks ago in the high fringe, and we had a fumble on the 34-yard line in last week's game. We had 2 missed protections in last week's game, 1 on 3rd down by a back, 1 on our offensive line on a 2nd and 10 situation, which created a longer 3rd down. We had a missed route being run. The reason why I'm just in my mind, I'm going through my mind, it's multiple things. Right. It's not one thing you're putting your finger on. Obviously, we need to coach better in the situations, because if our players aren't executing, that's a coaching issue, in my opinion. So we've got to do a better job of putting our guys in spots to be successful, where we don't have a protection issue, where we don't have a route that's not run precisely the right way. So those are things to me that we've got to continue to improve. I think we made some improvement in short yardage and goal line situations, and we'll continue to evolve. Those are things we've had in our package. We just didn't use them in the game 2 weeks ago. But those are things that we've done in camp and have had them up for games. And certain games, we didn't feel like we needed them. So that's just a coach's decision, and we'll continue to evolve there.
Is the run game more important down there than it is between the 20s for an offense?
Well, I think so. I think you've got to be able, when the pass zones condense, and you look at some of the teams that we've played this year, Missouri being one of them, and last week, when teams have a hard time running the football in the red zone and the pass zones condense, there's not as much yardage to get free. That's why we play pretty good red zone defense when teams have a hard time running the ball.
Coach, some of the guys talked about having more confidence and felt more confident this past week, being able to get off the field on 3rd down and holding Lotzak to those field goals in the red zone. But as a coach and just as a defensive staff, I mean, do you guys feel more confident in those guys being able to maybe install more, being able to throw some more things at them when they're able to produce like that?
Well, I think there's always a fine line about how much you do. And from a standpoint of if you're doing too much and the guys are thinking instead of reacting, I think that's always something but you can't be predictable. Because if people know where you are, defensive football is a lot like war. If you line up over and over again in the same spot, they're going to blow you up. So you've got to be multiple enough in what you do. But there's a fine line there, and we walk that line every week. Are we doing too much, or do we have enough bullets in the gun to make sure we're doing enough things and to give the offense some different looks? And certainly Noel Mazzoni, this isn't his first big game. I mean, he's been a part of them. So, but I never have lost confidence in our guys as far as those things are concerned. I think that, again, I go back to that as coaching. Let's put our guys in better spots to be successful, and that's on me. Nobody else.
Will, besides the fact that you'd like to have them both on the field playing, is there anything that you worry about when a Debo Samuel goes down and then the next week it's a Bryson Allen Williams, productive, vocal guys who are respected throughout the team?
Oh, absolutely. From a leadership standpoint, from a playmaking standpoint, that it certainly takes some other guys, and we have a mantra of man down, man up, and that's what you got to do. You got to move forward. And we're not stopping the season, and nobody feels sorry for us. They may all say it, but they're lying. They don't feel sorry for us. So at the end of the day, we got to just continue to step up. One man's misfortune's another man's opportunity, and guys have got to continue to rally. And you see that Ortre made a nice play for us, and Shai Smith's done some nice things. And Brian continues to elevate his play. The tight ends need to be more involved. I mean, it's a collective effort. When you lose something like that. Danny Fennell had a bunch of snaps the other day and did a nice job, came free on a couple situations, had his first career sack. Brad Johnson's going to have to play a bigger role for us Saturday night in College Station. So there's no question that we've got to have some more guys step up for us.
Will, speaking of Bryson, what do you lose from a leadership perspective when he's not on the field?
Well, as a calming aspect to me, as much as anything, David, when you have a guy that's been there and you got a guy like Sherrod Green on the field who for the first time has experienced a lot of new, and Bryson's telling him it's going to be all right, we're good, and helping him communicate. I mean, there's so many things. I'm just using Sherrod as an example. We've got several. Aaron Sterling, I mean, a bunch of young guys that are playing for the first time. So that calming factor to me, to be able to go through and give up a drive on the first drive series of the game against NC State, and Bryson's over on the sideline saying, "We're all right. We got to get off field on third." I mean, he's going through the coach speak that we do for the young players, which is that's a calming effect at times. Especially we didn't have headsets, so it didn't matter. Go ahead.
And also, Will, Bryson put out his statement after the game that he's coming back next year. When you talked with him, was there ever a consideration for him to maybe go ahead and try pro football next year?
Well, absolutely. And, Bryson's only 20 years old, so he's young, and he didn't redshirt his first year, obviously. And, I was pretty awesome when he told me. He looked at me and said, "Coach, I love it here. I love South Carolina. I love being a Gamecock. I love where the program's headed. I'm so excited about the future here, and I want to be here." And so that says a lot about the program you have, too, of guys that know they want to be here and want to be a part of what's happening. So, but extremely pleased and happy. I talked to Darnisha that night, and she said the same thing.
Will, what is the biggest barrier to this offense being the explosive unit that many thought it would be before this year?
Well, I think, first of all, Debo Samuel's hurt. That hurts. That takes away, obviously, your most explosive playmaker in your first 3 games of the season. But I think from an explosive play standpoint, I think we ended up having 8 explosives the other day. I think our goal is 8. You go into a game, if you have 8 explosives, you're going to be able to put yourself in a position to win the game, to win field position battles, and score points. The issues we've got right now is we got to score more points, and we've had missed opportunities in the high fringe area of the red zone and in the red zone area. And we've got to convert those into points and touchdowns in those situations, and that's something that we just have not done.
Coach, Texas A&M, at least the last couple of years, doesn't seem to be afraid to get into these track meet games. How does your approach change in a game that, you're not out of it if you're down 21 because there are violent swings, it seems, in a lot of their football games?
Well, you got to play the game, and obviously you may have a plan of how you want to play the game going into it, and that certainly can change based on the flow of the game and how the game's going. They've got some explosive playmakers. There's no doubt about that, and they've got some guys on defense that can change the game quickly. Obviously, with them leading the league in sacks, that tells you something right there. They got some guys that can win in the one-on-one. So, but again, I think we'll continue to evolve offensively. We'll capitalize on more situations that we haven't in the last 2 weeks, and put more points on the board.
after you kind of reviewed the film, what really popped about the way Daniel Fennell played, and how much work has he done at the strong side linebacker position kind of through the year?
Well, he's been backing Bryson up at Sam for the most part. We were nickel most of the other day, so it was mostly at the buck position for us. But I thought he did a really nice job. He set the edge on a couple runs really well, and came free on several rushes on a little pass rush game that we had come up in the game plan. That he came free in the A gap several times, pressuring the quarterback, and got his first career sack. So I think he was very productive.
Hey, well, I think 4 interceptions now for Jake. Is that still him learning the system, or is that something else you think?
Well, I think the first one against NC State's on a third down situation, which was as good as a punt, a 50-50 ball to, I believe it was Brian or Debo. I can't remember who it was, but, it was a 50-50 ball down the field against Kentucky. Poor decision on the sideline, over on their sideline. We're in the high red. We can't turn the ball over in that situation, and just throwing it up in a situation there. It wasn't in a one-on-one. That was in the coverage, so that was probably a poor decision there. The other day we had a read route based on a rolled-up corner, and Hayden sat down where you're supposed to, and Jake led him outside, which you can't do. And that was a poor decision there. And then the late one against Kentucky, it's in a drop 8 situation. He's trying to fit it in on the sideline. We needed to get chunks of yardage. We're down 10. He's trying to fit the ball in. So you really look at 2 poor decisions out of the 4, in my opinion, that he would have liked to have had back.
In the normal flow of the game, given some of the depth issues on defense and the youth on offense, is the offensive tempo to yours and Kurt Roper's liking? Would y'all like to go faster, if at all possible, or is that an issue right now?
Well, that's a discussion. We felt, obviously, 2 weeks ago we needed to speed it up, and we did in the second half, and moved much better. There at times Saturday in the second half we picked up the tempo a little bit and certainly functioned a little better. But certainly that is a discussion that's an everyday discussion for us with some of the depth issues we've got defensively, how fast we can really go with the football. And that's but at the end of the day we need to be more productive on offense. So that's going to win out for me in what we need to do to try and win the game, and that's be more productive offensively.
Whether it's Jake or any quarterback, how much or how important is it for on-the-job training as opposed to sitting in a meeting room or getting reps at practice or watching somebody ahead of you?
You don't play, you don't know. You don't have any idea till the guy actually goes and plays. I thought Jake would play well last year. I didn't know until he went out and actually executed and played. And then to see his, the way he prepares himself in practice and in the meeting room and those sort of things. But and really, I wouldn't even say it's a quarterback. I'd say it's all positions, how the guys play when the lights turn on and when it really counts.
Coach, is this Texas A&M offense the best offense that your defense will have seen this year?
There's no question. You look at their numbers; they've been extremely explosive. They've got a lot of explosive playmakers. They do a good job of getting their players that can make plays in space and make you tackle in space. So I don't think there's any question that this is the most explosive offense we faced all year.
Coach, how would you assess your secondary's play through the first 4 games of the year, and how important is Rashad Fenton and kind of keeping those guys together on the same
Well,
page?
Rashad's playing extremely well at corner, and he's played really good football. He's done a much better job of playing the ball down the field as opposed to a year ago. But I've been really pleased with how he's played so far this year. Again, I think that we've improved from game 1 to now. I think that we've all seen now that NC State's got a pretty good quarterback, and they've got some talented receivers outside, so that wasn't just us. They did a nice job. I thought against Missouri, we stayed on top. We didn't give them any explosives except the one against Jamarcus on their sideline as far as that, and then the one bust down the middle on the tight end. But we stayed on top of them for the most part in those situations of doing the things we've got to do to win the game. And then did a decent job in our third week. And then last week, again, the one explosive, which is a miscommunication. That's really on us as a coaching staff. That was not on the players. The miscommunication, we got the call in late, and we didn't get it communicated properly, but that was not the players' fault. So, again, I think we need to get our hand on some more balls. Jamarcus was a huge interception the other day. We haven't gotten our hands on as many balls as I would have liked to this point, but I think for the most part we've done a nice job of keeping guys cut off down the field.
How do you schedule out game day for the night games, and is that sort of a weird thing, kind of waiting all day to finally get to the game?
Well, I mean, it is what it is. Both teams have to do the same thing. But we get them up in the morning. We eat breakfast. We have a walkthrough, special teams walkthrough. We have offense and defensive walkthroughs. We'll have a film session separately, offense and defense, to kind of go through some things, and then we give the guys a little time just to decompress a little bit. We eat pregame meal 4 hours prior to kickoff, and then we have some more meetings right before we go to the stadium to kind of go over some last-minute reminders and such. But it's the same routine whether we're playing at noon or playing at 7:30, 6:30 Central Time, regardless of that. That's kind of what we do.
Will, a lot of news this weekend about the national anthem in the NFL. Obviously, you guys aren't on the field for the anthem, but have you talked with the team about their feelings on the matter?
Well, I addressed the team this morning, obviously, after this weekend. And, one of the great rights as an American citizen is freedom of speech. It's one of the things that makes this country what it is. And standing up for what you believe in, to me, is freedom of speech. And that's a right that every American citizen has, and it's what makes this country great. And I talked to our team about the people that stood up for what they believed a long time ago about this country, and that's why we are where we are today. And my point would be, listen, we can agree to disagree. At the end of the day, that's one of my favorite sayings. We don't have to agree. It doesn't make someone right. It doesn't make somebody else wrong. But certainly standing up for what you believe in is extremely important to me, and I express that to our players today.
Hey, Coach, for some of us who obviously aren't in the locker room and aren't around this team every single day, do you sense that maybe you have to remind the players that you are 3-1, that you've won 3 out of the first 4 games, even though last week's win only came by a point?
We don't really talk about the past. We just talk about each week's a season to us, and our season right now is Texas A&M. We approach each game as this is the season right here, and this is all we need to worry about, and this is all we need to focus on. And we really worry a lot about taking care of South Carolina and our preparation, what we do and how we do it and how we go about it, and we try to emphasize those things as much as anything. We don't really talk about the past much.
Is there anything to your particular success that you've had? I know it's only a small sample size, but the particular success you've had away from home, and how much does having the long trip already to Missouri help you prepare for the long trip to A&M?
Well, very similar for the players as far as the routine is concerned. That certainly, I think, is always good when you do have something to base off of and having success. So I think those are things that you always try and draw that experience for your players, and certainly, especially with younger players that are this is their first year making some of these trips, and for some of them for the first time ever getting on a plane flight. Brad Johnson asked us how we were going to get to Missouri. I said, we're flying. We're not taking a bus, bud. So I remember my days at West Georgia and Valdosta State. We took some buses, but no, that was a true question. And he did. I said, you ever seen the map?
Will, you mentioned the consistency and finding consistency on offense. How difficult may that be to find when you have these moving parts on the offensive line?
Oh, I don't think that, from that standpoint, I mean, we expect those guys to play at a high level. I thought Sedarius did an outstanding job when he came in, and Malik has played right tackle before, and he flipped over and did a nice job, and we need Blake Camper to be ready and DJ Park to be ready, and Chandler Farrell. I mean, those guys got to be ready to go play in the game, and we expect them to play at a high level when they get in there. So, man down, man up, regardless of the situation or the circumstances, we got to play well.
Going back to Rashad, do you guys keep track of number of targets and completion percentage against your guys, or is that something y'all look at quality control at the end of the season?
I think as much as anything, we do look at point of attack where people are throwing the football, but having been in this league for a long time and faced most of these coordinators as many times as we've faced them, we have a pretty good idea of probably who they may go after and what matchups they like and what matchups we like. So we don't – who has targeted him before, as far as the games are concerned, is not as important as maybe as what's going to happen down the road as far as what goes in, because each game's different based on that. And some teams that do play with tempo, which Texas A&M does, it's hard to get in some matchups that you want because of the fast pace of the game and the alignment, and they do switch the alignment of the receivers. They move their guys around a good bit. Last week, Louisiana Tech moved them all over. They didn't line up in the same place twice, it didn't seem like. So those are all things to me that are hard in a matchup situation when you play a team that's going to play with tempo, and do they move the receivers around enough? And some teams don't. Some teams leave them in the same spots for some obvious reasons of running the same routes the same way all the time, and the depth and the timing of it for the quarterback. So, again, those are things to me. But we do chart as far as a point of attack of when they're playing the ball and how he's playing the ball, and Rashad's played the ball well this year.
Coach, one of your guys basically said that Sidarius was probably smart enough to play any position on the offensive line. Did that factor into moving him to guard, and did you kind of see some of that with how he played on Saturday?
Well, part of being a good football player is being an intelligent football player, and Sidarius is. And to have position flexibility, that creates value for you as a football player when you have some versatility to your game, to be able to have value, to be able to play tackle, to be able to play guard. And certainly we feel comfortable in those 4 positions of him being able to do that, and a lot of it goes back to being a smart football player.
Well, has there been any schedule for Bryson's surgery yet?
Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, 6:30.
Have you talked with Debo anymore about his timetable? If there is a timetable, is it still the season? Are you holding out hope that he could come back?
Well, certainly, but again, that's not going to be for a while. And I talked to him yesterday in the training room a little bit, but we didn't discuss timetable or anything like that. He's doing well, and they're doing all the bone stimulation stuff and all the different stuff that they do on that. I haven't really had any other conversation with Clint Haggard or any of our training staff about it at this point. But certainly would welcome it if it happens. But for me, he's got to be completely healthy in that sort of situation to happen, and that's something we'll worry about in a month or so.
Well, do you game plan defensively any different for inexperienced quarterbacks when you're facing them?
Well, I think that depending on what their skill set is, are they a pocket passer? Are they a dual threat? They're able to do some different things we'd like to try and take away as best they can. It was funny you asked. I went back last night and looked at the Arkansas game and looked at the Lafayette game and just what plays are being called. They're not changing based on with Hubenex in the game or when Kellen Mond's in the game as far as what they do down and distance-wise. They're running what they run. They're calling what they call from a drop-back standpoint, from a run game standpoint. It's all the same. So I don't know that it changes a lot about those situations. Obviously, we do chart, what is their completion percentage versus 8 drop, 4-man rush with zone, 4-man rush with man, 5-man pressure, and then, +1 pressure. So those are all things that we do go back and look at hard. It was when they're playing the position as far as the throwing game is concerned.
When Ortre makes a play like that, or when Shai makes a big play up the middle, do you have to kind of remind yourself that they're still freshmen, or is that kind of something you guys experienced last year with Jake and Debo and Rico and Brian?
No, they're expected to play well when they get on the field, and we don't accept anything but that. I'm never going to tap him on the shoulder and say, it's okay, you're a freshman. That's not part of the deal. Part of the deal is they got to go play well when they get their opportunities, and we wouldn't put them out there if we didn't think they wouldn't play well.
Any questions for Coach?
All righty, thank you.